answers America.
General, both parties talk about bringing down food prices. How do we know which party to believe?
Well, instead of asking what party will bring prices down, why not ask what party put prices up? Then vote for a change.
You know what things cost today. High prices are just driving me crazy.
Yes, my Mamie gets after me about the high cost of living. It's another reason why I say it's time for a change. Time to get back to an honest dollar and an honest dollar's worth.
Eisenhower answers America.
I'm a veteran, General. What's wrong down in Washington? Graft, scandal, headlines. How can you fix it?
Here's how. By your votes, we'll get rid of the people who are too small for their jobs, too big for their britches, too long in power.
General, if war comes, is this country really ready?
It is not. The administration has spent many billions for national defense. Yet today, we haven't enough planes for the fighting in Korea. It's time for a change.
I for president, I for president, I for president. You like Ike, I like Ike. Everybody likes Ike for president. Hang out the banner, beat the drum. We'll take Ike to Washington.
In addition to an advertising budget 10 times bigger than the Democrats, Eisenhower had animation from the Disney studios and the music of Irving Berlin.
The man from Abilene, out of the heartland of America, out of this small frame house in Abilene, Kansas, came a man like D. Eisenhower. Through the crucial hour of historic D-Day, he brought us to the triumphant peace of VE Day. Now another crucial hour in our history. The nation, haunted by the stalemate in Korea, looks to Eisenhower.
The general who led the Allies to victory in World War II appealed to voters grown weary now of war in Korea and politicians in Washington. His ads offered a commander-in-chief who wouldn't need on-the-job training. He'd already been a leader of men.
I'd rather have a man with a hole in his shoe than a hole in everything he says. I'd rather have a man who knows what to do when he gets to be the prez. I love the governor of Illinois. He is the gov that brings the dove of peace and joy.
The Democrats had Adlai Stevenson of Illinois, but alas, they didn't have the music of Irving Berlin. Stevenson preferred his own lyrics.
We have done what doubters of democracy thought a democracy could not do. We have yielded neither to the hotheads who wanted to extend the war, nor to the weak-kneed who wanted to quit when the going was tough.
Stevenson didn't like television or Madison Avenue slogans. He liked to make speeches and puns. Unfortunately for him, the man who said, "Eggheads of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your yolks," had to defend an incumbent Democratic administration that had egg on its face.
Washington, 1952, home of the top-to-bottom mess. Today, all over America, patriotic men and women are jarred by the constant disclosures of graft and bribery in the Washington administration. Shocked by tales of influence peddling.
But the trouble with calling the other fellow a skunk is that sometimes the wind changes.
My fellow Americans, I come before you tonight as a candidate for the vice presidency and as a man whose honesty and integrity has been questioned.
The Republican attack on Democratic corruption almost backfired when Democrats spread stories of a secret trust fund set up for Ike's running mate, Richard Nixon. Party leaders pressured Nixon to resign. Instead, he took his case directly to the voters in a speech broadcast live right after the popular Milton Berle show. The Checkers speech, as it came to be known, got the biggest audience of the campaign and saved Nixon's political career.
I love my country. And I think my country is in danger. And I think the only man that can save America at this time is the man that's running for president on my ticket, Dwight Eisenhower.
Look at where we are going, travel day and night for president. Let Adelaide go the other way, we'll all go with Ike.
Ike clinched the election with a last-minute promise to go to Korea, although he never explained what he would do when he got there.
We'll take Ike to Washington, we'll take Ike to Washington.
The Republicans were back in the White House for the first time in 20 years.
The Democratic National Committee presents another visit with the man from Libertyville. Here at the end of this lane, on a farm about 4 miles from Libertyville, lives Adlai E. Stevenson of Illinois.
Take one, track 43.
Now, here's the governor.
In 1956, the Democrats tried to fight the popular man from Abilene with the man from Libertyville. This time, Adlai Stevenson would be just plain folks. He'd even changed his opinion about television, and he told us so.
But you know, it's amazing how many things there are in television that you don't see. But I confess I rather like it. It's wonderful how sitting right here in my own library, thanks to television, I can talk to millions of people that I couldn't reach any other way.
The ads portrayed Stevenson and his running mate, Estes Kefauver, as simple country farmers, standing up for their neighbors.
Most of the key men in the Eisenhower administration are big industrialists. They know big business. They know how to advertise their products. They know even how to advertise their political products. But they don't know much about the farmer's problem.
Meanwhile, Eisenhower's neighbors were speaking up for him.
I always stop when I reach this particular spot. Look over there at that house, where you see the lighted windows. A neighbor of mine lives there. Yep, Dwight D. Eisenhower. A man with the most important job in the world today. What do you suppose he's thinking about over there?
International crises in Hungary and Suez. That's what the president had on his mind. His ads told us he was too busy for politics as usual. Just enjoy your prosperity, they said, while Ike tends the store. And don't forget, he had gone to Korea.
But 4 years ago, it was a different story. 4 years ago, many of our young men were on Heartbreak Ridge in Korea. And that was no game. What do you say? Are you willing to bet everything you love and hold dear that Stevenson can also keep us out of war? Are you that sure of it?
Eisenhower was so popular that the frustrated Democrats tried to chip away at his pedestal with the new blunt instrument of the negative commercial. They used words written for Ike 4 years earlier by Rosser Reeves.
How's that again, General? During the 1952 campaign, General Eisenhower promised a great crusade.
Too many politicians have sold their ideals of honesty down the Potomac. We must bring back integrity and thrift to Washington.
How's that again, General?
We must bring back integrity and thrift to Washington.
This is Estes Kefauver. That was another promise the general didn't keep.
It didn't work. Many people resented the attacks on their president. So Democrats went after the man who might become president. Eisenhower had suffered a heart attack, and the Democrats asked,
"Nervous about Nixon? President Nixon? Vote Democratic. The party for you, not just the few."
Meanwhile, the philosopher from Libertyville was still trying to prove that he was just one of us.
The Stevensons are returning now from a shopping trip in Libertyville. The governor is helping with the groceries.
Now, most of us don't go grocery shopping in a suit and tie. And doesn't he know the butter is melting? Governor, oh, Governor, don't look now, Governor, but...
Oh, Nancy.
You were a big help, Doc.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot to deliver the groceries and made a speech instead.
Who will you vote for? What's your decision? What do you say?
Me? I like...
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
He had been considered by many Democrats as too young, too rich, and in too much of a hurry. Television helped him overcome the obstacles, if not the doubts. His spots showed him exchanging views with Americans of all stripes, from classrooms to coal mines. Even the most controversial issue, the one that threatened to cost him the most, he turned to his advantage with ads in which he stood before Protestant audiences to answer questions about his religion.
The question is whether I think that if I were elected president, I would be divided between two loyalties, my church and my state. There is no article of my faith that would in any way inhibit. I think it encourages the meeting of my oath of office.
Kennedy's opponent, Vice President Richard Nixon, did not use television as much in his campaign. Nixon's ad stressed his experience in foreign affairs. Still photographs conveyed a heroic image of the candidate.
Mr. Nixon, what is the truth about our ability to fight the growing menace of communism?
Well, first, we must recognize communism for what it is.
Against the advice of his television experts, Nixon opted for the direct approach in his spots, in part because he thought the public would be turned off by a slick campaign.
That America won't stand for being pushed around anywhere in the world. When Mr. Khrushchev says our grandchildren will live under communism, we must answer his grandchildren will live in freedom.
Kennedy countered with reminders of anti-American demonstrations that occurred when Nixon traveled abroad.
If you believe America's world prestige has gone downhill in these 8 Republican years, vote Kennedy for president.
Kennedy's most effective spot, one used over and over, simply quoted President Eisenhower, who was asked by a reporter to name one major idea of Richard Nixon's that Ike had adopted. Just one.
If you give me a week, I might think of one. I don't remember, because...
Ike's off-the-cuff remark damaged Nixon, but the vice president hurt himself even more in what came to be known as the Great Debate.
Here are some revealing excerpts from the Great Debate.
Well, now let's look at these bills that the vice president suggests were too extreme. One was a bill for $1.25 an hour for anyone...
Appearances were everything. Radio audiences thought Nixon had won the debate, but to TV audiences he seemed nervous and uncomfortable. He had only recently been in the hospital recovering from an illness, and his refusal to wear makeup didn't help his appearance. Kennedy's ad men made the most of it. Spots featuring a shifty-eyed, scowling Nixon appeared right up to Election Day.
Americans want to move ahead with new leadership. Let's elect John F. Kennedy president.
And they did, by just over 100,000 votes.
I know what kind of a dream Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Harry S. Truman